And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today I'm going to be taking a look at Brussels 1893. Now, I'm not really enamored by this cover here. It has some guys drawing, and it just kind of looks a little bit bland. And when you look at the board, it has that splash of, oh, all these bits and moving pieces and tracks and points, oh my. That's because Brussels is what we call a eurogame. In fact, I thought Stefan Feld designed this game, but it's a new designer that I had not heard of before. And so let's take a look at this game to see what I think of it. Okay, I'm not going to go over every rule, so please don't use this as a guide of how to play the game. I just want to give you a basic overview as to how a game works. Now, you notice this board here is made up randomly of these 5 boards that are placed here to the side, just like there's this circular track here which is made up of randomly. I'd like to point out that I think this is what I would call unnecessary randomness. It's so every game can be different. But you know what? If they had given this full board built just like this, and printed these on the board, that would have saved a lot of setup time, and I don't think it would have changed much of the randomness in the game. It's not that big of a deal. But be that as it may, in this game, as in many of these types of games, the goal is to get the most points. So each turn of the game, you're going to turn over one of these cards here, and these cards, this stock market card, is going to have 2 different things on it. First of all, this price here at the top of the card, you can see it's 6, is how much money you get if you take one of the actions on the board. But another thing is important here. Let's say it's a 4-player game. This gives 2 sets of coordinates, 2-4 and 4-2. Now those coordinates have to do with this board over here. So when I say 2-4 or 4-2, whoever's the first player is going to put out this marker here. So here is 2-4. So I could put it like this. I picked the biggest section, so that would mean this is the only playable part of this board at this point in time. Or I could put it at 4-2, which would be here, and so this would be the playable part of the board. So that's a pretty cool mechanism. Different parts of the board will be playable based on what is drawn. So players would then, after this part of the board has been picked up, players are going to use different workers that they have, and they're going to send them to different spots on the board. They can send them to the playable section of the board here, or they can send them to the city up here in one of these spots. Now when you send a guy to the board here, you're going to put money underneath them, some francs underneath them. That's like a bid. And that bid is important because at the end of a round, whoever has the most people in each column with the most money, not the most people, but the most money, is going to win a card at the bottom, which can give you bonus points or a special ability. And you can't put these guys out without putting some money underneath them. So if you're going to put anybody here, you need at least some francs. Each space that you put these on will give you different things. One of the spaces, painting a painting, lets you draw randomly from a pile of different goods and take a work of art. That's a different color. So for example, this here is a pink work of art. I built a hair clip. Another one allows you to display your paintings. You will be able to go over here and put your painting on display. So for example, I can put a pink painting on display here. And then maybe the next person who puts a painting on display will put a blue painting on display. Now, while these two works of art are on display, no one can play pink or blue. So someone will have to cover that up with another color before pink can be played again. Now, when you put these on here, the number of works of art you have in front of you is going to allow you to move this here. This can, let's say I have 3 works in front of me, so I can move it 3 spots. So I go 1, 2, 3. This makes pink. When I put one of these paintings on display, pink is going to give me 6 francs and 4 points. This is a really cool idea. You can see that pink, yellow, green, and blue are going to move around, and black, which is in the middle, are going to move around, and the prices are going to change. It's a really cool mechanism, and I wish this was done. I like to see this done in other games. Then over here, you can also attract a personage to come and join you. So you can go over here and pay the cost for one of these guys. These guys will be in front of you, and you can tap them over the course of the game to get different things. Like this guy can be tapped to get victory points. This guy can be tapped to give you an extra worker to go out. This guy can be tapped to move you up on one of the tracks. At the end of the game, though, each of these guys has a cost. This doesn't, these guys don't give you favors for free, and if you can't pay that cost, you'll lose 5 points each. Another spot on the board is going to let you build buildings. Each player has their own player board, and they're going to build buildings. There's a track here that you're trying to get to move up over the course of the game. That's one of the things you're doing. And at the end of the game, every building you build is going to be worth points equal to wherever you are on this track. Also, when you build buildings, you're going to be placing those buildings on the board so that whenever someone goes to that spot, then when, let's say, another player goes to that spot, they'll take the action, but you will get a secondary action. For example, the secondary action when someone else does a work of art is it gives you one of the black works of arts. These aren't random, and they're not ever going to be as valuable as the other ones, but hey, you got it for free because someone else did it. When you build something, you're going to take a look at the different resources that are shown on this wheel here. So this one's pointing to the blue resources and the brown resources. So that means when I build, I have to use, half my resources have to be blue and the other half have to be brown. So I built a building here from the lowest level. It costs 2 resources. This costs 3, this costs 4. So when I build those resources, let's say I did a 2-1, I'd have to pay 1 blue and 1 brown cube. After I do that, I then pick one of these dials and move it. If it's pointing to the empty one, then all the resources have to come from where the other one is. Both these dials can't go to the same spot, and it's possible that money. And there's also wild cubes that can count for anything. However, if you use a wild cube, you won't get a 5-point bonus when you build a building. So you have to decide whether wild cubes are worth it to use or not. Speaking of wild cubes, up here you can put a worker to get 3 of them. There's a spot on the regular board to get 2 resources of your choice. But up here you can get 3 wilds. Remember, that's not as good as it sounds because when you use them, you're losing points essentially. When you go to these spots up here, you can send workers. This spot here gives you money to get the amount of money here. This spot here lets you use any of the spaces on the board, but you don't have to put money underneath your guy. And this spot here lets you use those people who come to work for you. You can tap them and use them. And the number that you can use when you go here depends on where you are on this track. Now, there's 2 things about putting workers here. First of all, the first person to put a worker in a spot only needs to put 1. After that, even if it's the same player, players will need to put 2 workers and then 3. Unless it's a 4 or 5 player game, then the first person puts 1, the second person puts 1, and then the third person would have to put 2, etc. Also, at the end of a round, whoever's put the most workers here has one of them leave and go down here to the unemployment office, where you're going to have to use actions to get them back again. I said at the end of a round, whoever has the most in each column is going to get one of these cards. Each of these cards, like this one lets you move up 2 on one of the tracks, this gives you another worker, etc. You can either take that bonus or you can take the card itself and stick it sideways underneath your board for scoring at the end of the game. For example, each of these ones here, for example, this one here is going to give you 1 point for every 4 coins you have. So if I put this down here, I'm going to get 2 points for every 4 coins I have. And if I get several cards and put them here, perhaps I can try a money strategy and get 4 points for every 4 coins I have. So getting a lot of money might be worth it to me. But that's a tough thing to do because you're giving up the bonuses on these cards. Also, each spot on the board that has 4, each of these shields here, that has 4 people on all 4 sides of it, whoever has the most people surrounding it is going to get points at the end of each round when these are removed. And the number of points that that player will get will depend on where their marker is on this track. This is going to continue. The game takes place over several rounds determined here, and there's these little guys in the back of these and on the bonus cards to determine who goes first in the next round. But after several rounds, you will add up all your points, take bonus points for buildings and such, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game is the winner. Now, several of you have probably, if you've watched my reviews before, are already getting set to brace themselves for my reaction against this game, but the simple fact of the matter is I like this one. Now, let's be honest, the theme is barely existent. Although, the getting the goods to build works of art does make sense in some degree in displaying them. But this is not a game based on its theme, it's a game based on its mechanisms, and I think that they're fairly straightforward in this game. Now, this is a heavy Euro game, no doubt about that, no medium weight stuff here. There's a lot of bits and moving pieces here, but I like each of the bits and moving pieces. I like the variable pricing / point track of the goods. That's really a cool idea. I like when you put workers out, you're bidding on the card at the bottom, and then that card can be used for two different things. I like the patrons that you can take on who are going to cost you money at the end of the game, but at the same time can give you special abilities that you can use multiple times. I like how the game actually allows you to pursue very different strategies. You can just try to build lots of works of art, and then keep showing them off, selling them, getting points that way. Or make a concerted build all my building strategy, get as many workers out there and try to get the shields. I really feel like there's at least 2 or 3 main strategies that you can try in this game, and they seem to be very well balanced. The game is going to be difficult your first time through, I think, because you're like, well, how does this all work together? But it really flows together a lot better than I thought it would. And it really left me thinking, whoa, let me see what I can do differently in the next game. And then the next game I tried, my first game I tried a hodgepodge of everything, and that didn't work very well. My next game I took a more focused point, and I enjoyed it a lot more at that time. So I'm not going to recommend this game on theme, of course, but I think this is a solid thing of mechanisms, and it doesn't feel like it's mechanisms added for the sake of that. They all work together like a well-oiled machine, and that is what I'm looking for when I'm going to play one of these games. If I'm going to play a game where the theme doesn't matter, then I want to see something where I'm saying, ooh, what strategies can I pursue? And not something where I have to think and feel like work, because it didn't feel like work. You have workers to place, which is something I like. You can place them in various spots. If someone takes a spot that you want, there are many other good spots. You can get more money, you can use your guys, you can do paintings. And when you put a building out, someone else uses it, and you get a secondary thing, that's really cool. And you'll find out quickly that the center spots on the board are better because they'll show up more often. So, a neat game. I went into this, I'll be honest, didn't think I was going to like it, but I think it's an excellent little game. Not one I want to play all the time because of the amount of thinking involved, but certainly one of the best Euro games that came out last year, Bruxelles, 1893.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut that door.